I don't feel like I know all the characters in Genshin Impact quite well enough to make a tier list actually based on their usability in-game. So, what we're going to be doing here is making a tier list. You know, it's pretty similar in nature. Instead of usability in-game, we're just going to be judging them based on how well I think they would do in high school. It's pretty much the same thing, right? So the tiers that we're going to be having are skipping school, F, D, C, B, A plus, and then a tier where they actually would be the teacher. If you do happen to enjoy this video, all I ask is that you leave a like. Also, feel free to leave any suggestions down below of tier lists you'd like to see in the future. You know, really just crazy, stupid, definitely not stupid, fun ideas that I can do in the future, and if I like it, I will happily do it. When it comes to Aether and Lumee, I feel like they're gonna fall into the B tier just because they're not even from the same world, so when it comes to things like history, they're not gonna have as much of an idea, and I feel like they have a lot of other things on their mind since, you know, they're traveling from world to world. With Albedo, I feel like a solid A, not A plus, only because I feel he is such a perfectionist and kind of gets himself very invested into whatever he's working on, so that kind of lends him to not get the highest grade because he spends too much time on each project. Let's all be fair, Amber is a bit of an overachiever, I think, so A plus. Ayaka, where would we put Ayaka? I think in the B tier as well. I think she's smart, but I think she has lived a sheltered life so far, and that has kind of led her to not be as well knowledged as she potentially could be, so I'm just gonna safely put her in the B. Next up is Barbara, and again, I am going to be putting her in the B tier, only because I feel like she would do well and would devote a lot of her time to the studies. However, because she wants to be an idol, I feel like she'd be very distracted by that. Beidou is definitely, in my opinion, going to be in the skipping school category. I just feel like that is not the path that she's going to be following. When it comes to Bennett, our favorite buffer, I honestly think he'd fall into C, not because he wouldn't try, but because in the lore, it's known that he has terrible luck. So when it comes to things like a multiple choice test, and you know, you take a few guesses on those, you don't know everything, he'd get it wrong. D-Luke is going to be in the skipping school category. I mean, he kind of does whatever he wants and lies, gets out of situations in games, so it would make sense he just wouldn't show up because he wouldn't care. Now when it comes to Chung Yoon, I don't have too much to go off of other than, you know, exorcisms and that sort of stuff, which doesn't really pertain to school, but he is friends with Xingqiu, and I feel like Xingqiu would help him out and, you know, kind of be a tutor for him if he's struggling, so I'm going to put him up in the A category. Diona strikes me as someone who would fall into the B range. I know we have a lot of characters here so far. I don't think there's going to be too many, but she just strikes me as that because I don't think she would be in the highest range, but I also don't think she'd be down in like D or F, and I think she'd put in some effort. Now maybe you might disagree with me on this one, but for Fischl, she just strikes me as the kind of character who is very quiet, doesn't really talk too much, but then somehow does insanely well on every single test she takes and just top ranks of the class, so I'm going to put her up in the A plus tier. According to lore, Ganyu is really good at dealing with a lot of things thrown at her at once. However, she also tends to fall asleep a lot, and because of that, I can't put her up in the A plus tier, but she is good at dealing with a lot of work, and she's dealt with it for thousands of years, so I'm going to safely put her in the A tier. So up next we have Hutao, and Hutao kind of strikes me as someone who is very carefree, and with that, I don't think she's going to be taking school too seriously, so I'd put her in the B tier. I don't think she's going to be failing, but I don't think she's dedicating all of her time to studies. Now, Jean is an interesting case because honestly, I'm just going to put her straight up in the teacher tier because I don't really see her being a student. She just strikes me as the kind of person who would actually be the teacher. All right, so Kaya is a bit of an interesting case. I don't feel like he would be the one doing all the studying, but as we know from in-game, he's really good at manipulating people and getting what he wants. So I feel like he would find ways to scheme his way into getting good grades, but he wouldn't be getting the top ranks because, you know, that'd be too suspicious. Instead, he would be strategically getting himself an A grade in most classes via cheating or getting answers somehow, and I just feel like that's where he's gonna be belonging. Another interesting case here is Kaching, because she is a very hard worker, but she's also a skeptic about a lot of things and she has a very strong opinion. So she has the ability to be in the A+ tier. However, because she likes to question everything and might not like to agree with what is taught to her, I'm going to put her in the A tier. Our first character going into the D tier is going to be Clee, and this is because I don't think she'd be failing, but I think she would just be very distracted with her own experiments at home. And I mean, she is young. I'm not really taking age into account with most of this, but I feel like she's very absent-minded, so we're just going to put her down in the D tier. Now Lisa is once again going to be going up into the is the teacher category. I mean, she is a librarian in game, so it kind of makes sense, but I feel she's very knowledgeable and I literally just cannot see her as a student. Mona is up next, and I feel like she's the kind of character who is kind of that tsundere-esque character in the animes, in the classrooms, where she'd be getting top ranks, and yeah, I'm just gonna put her up in A+. We already know from in-game lore that Ning Wang is very strategic and she talks everything over with her followers, or whatever the other people in the room were called, so I feel like she would just easily be able to get help with whatever problems she might have, and she's very strategic on her own, so A+ for her as well. Noelle, to me, seems like the type of character that would be in the A tier. I don't think she'd be getting top ranks, but I feel like she is pretty competent. And introducing the first character going into the failing tier is going to be none other than Chichi, because I feel like she just would not listen to a single word that is being said in the classroom. And also going into the failing tier is Razor, because he was raised by wolves, and as such, I don't think he would do very well in a standardized educational setting. Now, Sucrose seems like the character who would be A+, studies literally all day, is still afraid they're going to fail, but always gets perfect marks on every test. Child, or Tartaglia, is a character that to me seems like he could do very well in the classroom, could get perfect scores, but I don't think he's actually going to be spending his time on that, so I'm putting him in the B tier. He's going to be putting in decent effort, but not really giving it his all because he is just not really caring. Venti seems like he is very carefree in nature, and thus I feel like even though he could also do very well in the classroom, I think he's just kind of there for the experience. He's not really taking it too seriously, and so I'm just gonna stick him in the C tier. Next up is the Chef Shanglin, and I feel like she could do very well, but is very distracted by her culinary endeavors, so I'll also be putting her in the B tier. Now we have Xiao, and I feel like Xiao's the kind of character who just would not show up. For the bookworm Xingqiu, I think it's pretty much an easy A+. I mean, he's literally always reading books, so he has to be pretty smart. The only reason he might be lower is if he gets too invested in other books that he doesn't focus on his studies, but I feel like he is just naturally in that A+. Now, since Xinyan is very focused on her rock music, I'm putting her in the skip school category because I feel like she would instead just be at home practicing on her guitar. Zhongli, a character that, in my opinion, easily goes into the A+ category, except for the fact that I don't think he would actually show up to school, so he goes into the skip school category. And following Zhongli into the skipping school category, we have Rosaria, who, as we know in-game, is already kind of rebellious, so yeah, just makes sense for her to be there. Now, Eula is head of reconnaissance for the Knights of Favonius, and therefore has to be pretty smart. I'm going to be putting her up in the A tier. Yanfei is a legal advisor, and as such, I feel she is already pretty smart, and her outfit kind of reminds me of some sort of educational smart graduate thing. I cannot think of the word that I want to say or what I'm even trying to say. She's just going up into the A+ tier. Scholar. It was scholar. Scholar was the word that I was looking for Yanfei's outfit. Now, Kazuha seems to me like the character that would just kind of coast through school. I don't think he would try really hard, but he would somehow just do exceptionally well, and he would just enjoy the whole process, so A+ for him as well. Yoymia, however, seems like a character who would put in some effort, but is just very carefree like some of the other characters, and as such, she wouldn't try too hard. You know, she's focused on her fireworks business, business and whatnot. She would probably be more focused on making friends rather than the actual study side of high school. I'll be putting her in the C tier as well. When it comes to Sayu, I feel like it's safe to put her into the F tier because I don't think she'd be trying too hard, and if she was, she'd probably just be asleep the entire time and learn absolutely nothing. The Raiden Shogun's actually kind of a hard one for me to choose because I feel like on one hand she is very intelligent, but on the other hand her mind is so consumed by the desire for eternity and, you know, that whole side of the lore that I won't get into here. But as such, I think she'd fall into the A tier. I feel like she's naturally intelligent, but she kind of limits herself with how much she's preoccupied with other things. Kujo Sara, to me, just seems like A+ tier. I don't really have a solid reason for it. It's what yeah, 100%. All right, so next up is Kokamy, and according to the game, she is a very smart leader. We didn't really see that smart side, so I'm not gonna put her in the A+, I'm gonna put her in A, because, you know, apparently she's a smart leader, we just have yet to see that side of her. Aloy is another tough one because we don't have too much information on her, and I personally haven't played Horizon Zero Dawn, so I'm just going to stick her in the A or B. We'll give her the benefit of the doubt. We'll put her in the A tier. You know, she's doing well, but she's not exceeding expectations. Toma is a bit of an interesting case because I feel like he is smart and he knows how to work his way through situations, but I don't think he would be getting top ranks by himself. However, he's very good at collaborating with other people, so I think he would go above and beyond to really excel in the classroom, even if it's not by the most fair means. Now, the last two characters we have are Arataki Ito and Goro, and these two characters, obviously we don't have too much information on. However, I believe Ito was the leader of a gang of some sort. So with that definition alone, I'm going to be putting him in the skipping school category. And, you know, I think Goro being kind of a leader of some kind could be up in the A+ or A, but since we don't know him too well yet, I'll just stick him in the A to be safe. That is my finished tier list of if all the characters in Genshin Impact happen to go to high school, how they'd perform. If you agree or disagree, let me know down in the comments, and I hope you enjoyed this.